In their lives or their parents' lives, that was somebody that was doing something that probably wasn't like their parents did or grandparents did.
Yeah.
So they see that, and if you're doing it, like I said, for the right reasons, I think they're very, very open to someone going out and playing, and it's almost like, you know, I imagine to them like watching a kid play in a playground and go, man, have fun. I used to be that. I used to do some of that.
Absolutely.
And some of them, of course, still do, and I don't mean anything disrespectful, but
yeah.
I think if you're true to the art form, I think that they're very open to that.
Oh, that's very good to hear. That isn't altogether surprising to me on some level. On some level it is.
I'm not saying
Because
they're all
you
like that,
said,
I'm just saying a large number.
But a large number. Well, listen, in every group you're going to have certain people and maybe for all the right reasons, like you said, this is a business, and if they have certain things that they like to hold close to the vest, I certainly can't criticize them for that. But largely speaking, you feel embraced.
Yeah, and I think it's good for the industry. If you're out there trying to promote a cigar and you create a cigar that you enjoy and you have a following, it's overall good for the industry because we end up with more cigar smokers.
Yeah.
There's never been a better time to be a cigar smoker. You walk into that humidor and, I mean, there are a lot of great cigars at a great price point.
We were just having a conversation that we think it's the second renaissance of cigars. Now, I should say it's a second renaissance, as I know it. I'm not quite 40 yet, and I remember the 90s obviously had a big boom, but it feels like now, like you said, you go into Trey's Humidor, it's stunning, the quality of cigar. Everywhere you go, there's not a bad one in the group. It's absolutely loaded with folks that have the right flavor, have the right construction, the right burn. I mean, it's really hard to be critical of any of those. I mean, we've come across a couple, but it's the exception, it's not the rule. So
yeah, and I think the surge is really at the boutique level.
Yes.
I mean, and then there's always the, well, how do you define a boutique and stuff like that? But I think it's that level of cigars that, you know, you're seeing more and more boutique cigars taking over more and more of a humidor.
Yes.
You're seeing stores that would have never brought in boutiques before start to embrace boutiques and go, you know what, I'm seeing how they're selling, I'm seeing a different audience, I'm seeing a younger audience, another generation, if you will, and they're all looking for their own identity. And now, because of all the boutiques, I think they're finding an identity.
Yeah.
And that's why I look at, you know, and again, you know, within the House of Emilio, I look at, you know, Ezra Zion and 1502 and myself and Steve Sidron and a lot of people and the others obviously that aren't afraid to play, but all of a sudden have found a following very quickly. I would not have grown to where I've grown in such a short period of time if it wasn't for that audience out there hungry for that.
Yeah, I think that's right. Often what we compare it to is, I'm a craft beer drinker, right? So we have a lot of startups.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like there's a great parallel between what we're seeing, and to that end, what's happening in the craft beer arena is that the big guys in the market are obviously taking notice for all the same reasons.
Oh,
and
you have crazy stuff now.
They're circling back to buy some of the more boutique brews. Are you anticipating has that ever crossed your mind that, hey, listen, this is happening so rapidly? I mean, you just put the statistics out there. This is happening so quickly that you may get a phone call one day from, I'm trying to think of a general or an Altadis or somebody like that to say, hey, listen, this is dynamite, and we need as a corporate group of this size to begin to play in that space. What would you think? Is that attractive to you, or are you anti-establishment?
No. I think that, you know, it brings something to the table. I mean, I've talked to some companies because they've approached on some stuff, and you know, you weigh it out, because, you know, sometimes when you get bought out, then even if you're still participating, you get lost in the shuffle. If they've got this massive portfolio or something like that, it's kind of like when there's the hottest, latest social media thing, and the second your parents get on, it's like, oh man, all the kids are off and I'm not doing it anymore. So But on the other hand, there's a certain amount of resources there. There's a lot of things that would be very attractive. As to what their business model is, I don't know. If it was me, if you're talking pure business, and I'm not going to name one of the companies or whatever, but I would go look, you know, I would personally, from a business perspective, I would go find 5 probably big players that are really up and coming that you could probably invest in or buy part of or partnership with for relatively small dollars in their scheme of the world, and go, look, I only need 1 or 2 of them to succeed.
Absolutely right.
The question is, can you, if you do that, can you maintain that uniqueness?
Correct.
That you're growing, or do you get lost in the
There's a shelf life.
Exactly. Do you
Exactly.
do you disappear? Do you get what's the word? Homogenized.
Yes.
Into their, you know, what makes you great is that you can turn on a dime. You can do something different. Okay, so Twitter. You know, I imagine if there was a company that would go, oh, you know, I don't want you tweeting this. I don't. You can't say that. You can't. You know, like I do my April Fool's joke thing every day, and this year is probably going to tick people off, and they'd be like, oh no, you can't do that. You know, so do you lose the heart of the company when you go to another? Now, if you can maintain that independence, it could be a very good relationship, very profitable for both groups.
I'm actually surprised we haven't seen more of that. That we haven't seen those guys take notice of the landscape and doing exactly what you just mapped out and saying, you know, statistically, two to three of the 5 that we go for, this is good for everybody.
Yeah,
we can support that.
And you might. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know their business models. And in the end of the day, we're still relatively small. So they're like, you know, look, we move more sticks out of, you know, this region than they move the entire country. So they may go, look, it's not enough to be on the radar, but we've seen companies bought out before.
Yeah.
And we've seen, you know, like I said, if it was me, I suspect, well, I know for sure that a couple of them are kind of keeping an eye on a couple of us going, man, if this gets any more traction, we got to look at it. And then you have a decision to make whether you think you can protect the integrity of your brand if you have a partnership like that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Is there anything you wanted to cover, Vince, in terms of, is there anything that you wanted to promote that we didn't cover? We tend to, like I said, we like off-the-wall things
I'm
like...
edit this down for YouTube and stuff. Mention website and all social media where they can get a hold of you.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us how, for people that don't have Nomad yet inside of their local humidor, how do they start following and find out more about the Nomad?
The website that I have is nomadcigarcompany.com, and I try to keep up on listing the retailers there. There's a retailer map, and we try to update it every week for the new retailers. Twitter's Godfather, Godfadr. If you go to the website also, I have an e-letter that goes out every week, which is ridiculously stupid. But for some reason, I'm just having too much fun with it. And then, you know, I do giveaways and stuff like that, and I don't do a lot, but I mean, I've been doing some monthly contests, have some great prizes and cigars. And then, you know, try to catch out, you know, at events and stuff. I try to get out and do things like this.
Are you on the road a lot?
You know, not as much as some of the other guys. I started the thing, I love to travel, and I just came back from Nicaragua after spending 2 months in Nicaragua. So I'm not on the road probably as much as I should be, and I'm starting to go on the road more.
Okay.
But that's why I tried to leverage social media as much so that I could always have that conversation.
Yeah.
A year ago, 30 stores, it's easy. Now 140, boy, I'd have to go on the road, you know, the entire year to catch all the stores, so it's just not going to happen. So that's why I try to make sure, first and foremost, I'm accessible on my Facebook page. You know, someone looks at the cigar and they see the Twitter thing on there, and if they send me a tweet, I typically respond.
Yeah.
You know, or I retweet it or whatever. So I try to keep that conversation, that relationship, using the tools that we kind of have now.
Yeah. So you mentioned living in LA for a year. Where is home base for you now?
I mentioned living in LA for a year.
Didn't you say you were in LA for a year?
I was, but I was like 14, so I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were doing. No.
Kind of spooky research now all of a sudden. Stalker.
Restraining order.
Yeah, restraining order.
I don't know why. Where did that come?
I did live in LA for a year, but it's kind of creepy because I didn't think anybody knew that. So
Really?
I was like,
I
said that, I was like,
Oh, so, all right, let's try to edit that out because clearly I have no idea what I'm talking about.
it's the craft beer.
Right, it's not even if you. I
The
wish.
peanut butter porter, sweet baby Jesus.
Yeah, wow.
I had that the other day.
Pretty
Someone
good.
gave me that. Someone gave me that the other day. I'm like, really, peanut butter talking to beer? And I'm like, this is like the stupid. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all right. That is
they
all.
actually just came out with one that's a chocolate raspberry. I haven't tried it.
We were literally,
I'm not big into
we
it.
were eating Hershey's Kisses and doing the drinking the sweet baby Jesus at the DC Tweet Up. And I feel like I'm a drug addict. I'm like mainlining heroin and doing this at the same time. Speedball coming. You know, it was really weird, but it was good. You know, I'm not a huge beer drinker, but I mean, I mean, you walk into like a store that carries a lot of that stuff now, and I'm like, the names are wild.
Yeah.
I'm looking at these names going, man, they've got the coolest names ever. But just the diversity and I mean, they'll put anything in there. It's like, you know, pale ale, juju bead. I don't know. I mean, they just got, you name it. It's there's a beer for it.
Yeah, which I'm all fully in support of.
Well, it tastes good.
Yeah. So anything you wanted to cover?
No, I think that kind of wraps it up.
That's good. Thank you for spur of the moment doing that with us. That's
I mean,
awesome.
just definitely, you know, check out the cigars and you know, finally got to the point in the portfolio where I think there's probably one that fits what you're going for. And I mean, the nice thing about myself and, like, you know, the other guys in the House of Emilio is that, you know, if you're talking to me at an event, and this floored somebody the other day, it's like, look, if my cigar's not the right one for you, I'm not going to push my cigar on you.
Yeah.
I want you to have the cigar that's right for you, and I'll probably recommend something else from one of my colleagues or outside even House of Emilio to find you the right cigar. And what's working for us is just that it's almost refreshing to people going, wow, the guy's not hammering his stick. He's like, you know, this is the best one ever, you know. So.
You're so right. Most of the time we ask the questions, and that's, I wanted to make sure that we predate your time with House of Emilio and what you like to smoke. And most often people are actually really good, but we have, you know, without naming names, had a couple of guys, and they won't. They're like, I smoke my own.
See,
I
don't
get it.
I don't get
surprised that.
I don't get that. I think.
Yeah, I smoke House of
I think honestly, if you're a
House of Emilio. But anyway,
if you're
question from the peanut gallery, Fred, if you're not smoking your own cigar, what's the best cigar out there to smoke?
oh, the best cigar. Oh, Cubans. I only smoke Cubans.
There you go.
Yeah. You know, I think, and I'm not going to pick on, I mean, I don't even know who that was. I think if you say, honestly, in all honesty, if you're saying the only cigar you smoke is your own, then you're either being incredibly hypocritical or you're a jackass. No, you're just closed-minded. It's totally irresponsible to say that. And if you really believe that, then man, I guess more power to you. But I'd never be, I mean, you know, my one humidor probably has more of, like, you know, Willie Herrera's new cigar on the row than my own sticks on that row, you know.
Yeah.
So you know, I just think that there's so many great cigars out there, and there's no embarrassment in saying that, you know what, this guy's got an outstanding Jose Blanco. I can't wait to see his new cigar because he doesn't have anybody above him now. This is going to be his baby.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you know, to say that no one else has a cigar better than mine, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you answering that honestly, because, like I said, it's not often, but it's happened more than once. We've had a couple of guys, and it's just, nope, I smoke my own, and I always find that a bit like, really? And irresponsible is a great way to define that, because in my head I'm going, isn't it part of the business to kind of keep the palate, you know, trying these different things to go, you know, I never would have thought about that. That's an interesting blend.
It's funny you said that. One of my famous moments is actually what happened 3 weeks ago when I put the next stick blend to bed, because when I'm blending, I have a tendency not to have the other sticks. When I put it to blend, I can't remember the cigar, but I went home and I lit up somebody else's cigar, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to smoke someone else's cigars now. But when I'm in the middle of blending stuff, I don't cloud it with anything else. So and I don't mean to pick on anybody. If somebody really does think that they've got a portfolio that all their cigars are the best and nothing else is good, hey, maybe you're that good, or maybe that's just your palate. And the only ones you like are the ones you blended for you, because if you're doing it right, you're blending cigars that you like. But beyond that, like I said, when I got done blending, there are probably about 5 different guys that I'm like, man, I mean, I haven't tried this for like 2 months, and I want to have this one. I want to whatever, and that's a refreshing time.
Yeah, I completely. And what is your by the way? There's another question we'd like to ask is, everybody's process is different from a couple of different angles. The amount of time. What's this? You know, how long does it typically take you? Because I imagine it's actually changing. Because like you said, the more you do it. Are you refining the process instead of taking 6 months? Are you down to 5 months? I mean, what?
I'm quicker at some stages and I'm longer in others. In the beginning, you know, when you don't know much, it's like you're only tasting subtle nuances. So that part's easy, but I never understood how someone would have a blend they like and they're tweaking the blend and tweaking the blend and tweaking the blend over and over and over again. It's kind of like, you know, when you don't know what you don't know, it's easier.
Yeah.
As you learn more, some parts of the process, shortcut, are much quicker. but it also opens up a door of a whole lot of other things that you start going, okay, well, what's going to happen to this in 6 months? What's going to happen to it in a year? What's going to happen if I do this type of fermented tobacco versus another type? So, I think the overall process is relatively quicker, but the complexity gets great, which adds more to the process.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
Which is probably a totally non-committal answer, but
No, I think that's an honest one. What is the ideal when you're making a blend? What is the size of the cigar that you're smoking to say, yep, I've got it, and now I'm going to pull that out into whatever it may be? Because to some degree, it's a personal preference. Vince and I thought that we had it figured out of what that cigar size is. We thought everybody was doing the same thing, and recently we're finding out that it's more person to person of how they're doing it. So what are you using to...
Well, I mean, some guys, I would say I do Toros.
Okay.
I think some guys actually do smaller ring gauges than I do on average. I mean, I don't know anybody that's like, 6x60, and that's the test blend on there. I tend to do Toros. I can't tell you why, other than that's a size profile that I just kind of have a better idea where it's going to go either way. I've noticed that in the last round, I start to play with a slightly smaller ring gauge on that, but that's usually about where I start.
Well, that's usually between the two most popular that when we do these interviews that we've heard. It started with something like a Corona, that the blenders thought that they were getting the true balance of filler to wrapper and so forth. And then recently, what we're hearing more of is Toro.
Right.
And one of the gentlemen that we spoke to, the rationale was, listen, Toros sell very well. Why would you not use a Toro when by volume that's what's moving off the shelves? And that actually made perfect sense to me. I was like, geez, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, mine's always been Toro until this last one. I did drop down size-wise, but it's funny, I dropped down size-wise at the table doing it, but when it came down to roll me 200 of them, put them away for 45 days and let me start smoking them, I went back to the Toro.
Interesting.
But I don't know in my line. I mean, Toros obviously sell. I think it's just a size that I'm comfortable getting all the flavors in it, I guess.
Vince and I have to give Vince credit.
You don't have
Vince
to.
in the last, I don't have to. He gets cranky. Yeah. But he turned me on to Lanceros most recently, which for good reason. I understand it, again, from a business perspective, not a great thing to make because they just simply don't move the way that the other ones do. But would you ever consider doing more limited edition, even in sizes like a Lancero?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. No, I do have a Lancero coming out.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do, actually. I do.
That was not staged, by the way.
No, I actually.
Sincere.
What happened is 2 months ago, I was at the factory. The Connecticut Fuerte was done. It was being released. And just for whatever reason, I was playing with some other sizes. I was playing with the Bellicoso and some other things. And I had them roll me 2 bundles of Lanceros just to take home. Because you're right, there's not a huge market, but the people that are Lancero smokers are really, really passionate about Lanceros.
Yes.
I remember talking to Jose Blanco about it, saying, man, I'm having trouble on the blend on a Lancero because it's a totally different animal, just as doing a 6x60 would be in the opposite end of the spectrum. So just as a fluke, I talked to my guy and said, blend me, knock me out some Lanceros. I took them home. I smoked a couple. I took a picture of it. And the number of tweets I got back going,
really?
Oh my God, give me one, I want one, whatever. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a limited number. I'm doing like 300 boxes or something like that. And it's not that I can't do more, because it's a production cigar.
Yeah.
So I can do them. I just said, you know what, give me 300 boxes, let me throw them out there, at least, the Lancero fans. It ended up being good in the Connecticut Fuerte. I tried it in the classic Habano line, but I didn't like it as much. The blend would have to tweak a lot more. The Connecticut Fuerte, we got it right. So yeah, I'm gonna release that probably in the next couple months here.
Oh, great.
Just for the Lancero kind of fans.
Well, as a fan of Lanceros, thank you for doing that. Yeah.
First box is sold.
We'll be in that. We'll be in that. Fred, I always think that there are interesting stories behind the artwork that's on bands. Tell us a little bit about what's on the Nomad band.
It was on a cereal box. I just stole it. No, I'm kidding.
Okay,
No,
I'd roll
no,
with
no,
it
no,
if
no.
that's your answer.
I did a sketch, and my artistic ability is not to create that, so I did this really ugly looking sketch, but it incorporated three things I really like. The wings are somewhat travel, but more so from flying stunt planes, which I really, really love, and I'd hope to get one at some point. The second one was the Iron Cross on there from riding motorcycles, and the third is the compass, because I really, really like to travel.
Yeah, I knew it. Always a great story behind the band. Taking time out of your day.
Thank you.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
If you haven't already checked out Nomad Cigars, stop what you're doing, go down to your local tobacconist and make sure you get one.
Thank you.